President Trump recently marked his 100th day in office, and his Secretary of State will reach that milestone by the end of this week. And like his boss, Rex Tillerson won't be getting there without a little bit of criticism. On Monday, Senator John McCain wrote a scathing op-ed in the New York Times in response to this comment Tillerson made last week to State Department employees.
If you condition our national security efforts on someone adopting our values, we probably can't achieve our national security goals or our national security interest.
That comment made Senator McCain respond by writing this. With those words, Secretary Tillerson sent a message to oppressed people everywhere. Don't look to the United States for hope. CBS News State Department reporter Kylie Atwood joins me now. And Kylie, these were comments that Tillerson made during a listening tour that he's doing at the State Department. Explain what this listening tour entails and how it's being received.
So Tillerson's launched this listening tour because he wants to reorganize the department. He wants to understand what his employees are doing, if they have the tools that they need to accomplish their goals, and he also wants to know if they're doing it as efficiently as possible. So what he's done is he's hired an outside consulting firm, and they've come in. They're going to cost the State Department $1 million, and what they're doing is threefold. First, they're sending out surveys to 75,000 State Department employees. They're also conducting 300 in-person interviews, and they're going to be going to U.S. missions abroad and talking to them about how their mission abroad translates and correlates to what the State Department is doing in Washington. So all of that is going to come together into a report that Tillerson will have at the end of this month, and he'll decide what decisions and changes need to be made.
And what do the senior career diplomats that you've spoken to think about this approach? I mean, I would imagine on one hand they like that he's listening to what they think the road forward should be for the State Department.
You're exactly right. So there are folks that say, listen, the State Department has fat and it needs to be trimmed. Mm-hmm. And that's something that has been circulating around Washington for a while now. But they're also frustrated and nervous by this survey because State Department employees that I've talked to say they're nervous about filling it out. First of all, it's an anonymous survey, but they're not quite sure that all of their answers are going to be kept private, and they're also not sure if it'll be used against them. And they're also frustrated because a lot of the questions that the survey asks seem a little bit too simplistic to them. It asks them to describe the State Department mission in 6 words. It asks them what of their responsibilities should be shifted to other agencies, which indicates that their responsibilities are going to be really shut down under Tillerson, even though he says he has no preconceived notions as he goes into this review.
Speaking of the core mission of the State Department, I would imagine that a lot of these diplomats feel that spreading peace and human rights is a core part of the State Department mission. So how did they feel about that comment he made where it sounded like he was saying it's a trade-off between human rights and our own national security?
Well, a lot of them liked to see Tillerson stepping up and talking to them in the first place, right? So it was the first time that he'd addressed the State Department since he got to the building. And they liked hearing his voice because one of their concerns is that the U.S. foreign policy hasn't really been fully formulated under President Trump, and a lot of what the decisions that are being made at the White House. And so one State Department employee actually said to me that if he talked to Tillerson, he'd say, "Tell me what your priorities are, sir, and I will get them done because that's my job." And so they're less worried about what exactly he's saying in terms of human rights, and they just want to know what they're supposed to do so that they can get to work.
Very quickly, we know that Secretary Tillerson is going to be meeting with the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergey Lavrov, on Wednesday. What is the meeting about?
The State Department says that they're going to talk about Syria. They're also going to talk about Ukraine and a whole host of bilateral issues. But Syria is really on the front burner here. So if we look at the last time that Tillerson and Lavrov met, they were in Moscow. And we expected that maybe there was going to be a positive relationship cast between the two of them, but actually they exchanged some frosty language. Tillerson said that, you know, U.S.-Russia relations are at the lowest point since the Cold War, and it's unclear where they're going to go from here. So as they sit down and talk, I think it's important to note that over the weekend, Russia was able to get together a de-escalation agreement in Syria. And so they got Turkey, Iran, and the Assad regime to agree to 4 zones in Syria that are going to be de-escalation zones. So they're going to stop all violence. And so Tillerson will also have the opportunity to sit down with Lavrov and say, you know, this is great. We're cautiously optimistic that this can hold, but you also have to be held accountable for making sure that the Assad regime doesn't go off and start attacking the opposition and taking this and going in the wrong direction. They want to see the Russians really push the Assad regime towards peace and stability in Syria.
Well, there'll be a lot to talk about between the two of them on Wednesday, and it'll be interesting to see if it's a little less frosty than last time.
We'll see.
Kylie Atwood, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.